and we'll get all our friends around us and we'll sing a song together.
One, 2, 3, 4. My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. And again. My body's nobody's body but mine.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Pedos Down Under Radio. I'm Fiona Barnett, and today we are continuing with a discussion with Debra, who was a Wood Royal Commission witness as a mum of 2 victims of the Sydney-based pedophile network. Now, during our last show, Debra and I were talking about the involvement of Hillsong, and I'd like to concentrate today on discussing the role of Hillsong in this pedophile network. And it seems that Hillsong plays a huge role in this, Debra.
Yes, it does.
So, yeah.
What I found over the course of time was that Hillsong placed their members in key positions. They manoeuvred things around so that they got into areas such as volunteering in policing, so that they had their volunteers in the police stations. It came across as though they were doing a wonderful service, but in actual fact they weren't. What they were doing quite often was when calls came into the police station, say from women who had separated from their husbands due to domestic violence, etc., then the church would contact these people and offer them assistance. Please come to our church and whatnot. Obviously, it was for the access to the children. I had one case that I dealt with in relation to that, where the young mother had fines to pay. Anyway, instead of paying the fines because she was on her own and with 2 little ones, they gave a community service. Now, when it came around at Christmas time, she had her children in a daycare centre for 2 days a week. Anyway, while they were in the daycare centre, she had been doing her community service to pay off the fines. Now, when it came to Christmas time and the kindergarten, the daycare centre was closed, she couldn't do the community service. And so the church reported her for that, for breach. Anyway, she still had something like, I think it was 7 months to go to complete these hours that she had to go. And so she had more than ample time. That wasn't an issue. What the issue was, the police officer that came to the door heard the children crying. He said, "Oh, you got little ones?" She said, "Yeah." And he said, "You've got 24 hours to sort this out." But when he came to the door, he was ready to arrest her and take her for breach of a community service order. Now, who was with him, though, was 2 members of the church ready to take the children. So she contacted a friend of hers, who, by the way, knew me. So I spoke to her then and found out the details, and then I got on to Debra and told her
politician.
Yeah, she was the MP at the time. And so she let me deal with it. Well, I contacted the parole office in relation to this community service order. And the woman there, I said to her, what are you talking about? She hasn't breached her parole office, the community service order thing. I said, it's just that there is no facilities. They wanted her to take her kids to the church and leave them there in the crèche. She said no. They tried to force her into doing that under threat, see? Wow. So my knowledge of any community service orders, is that it can be conducted at any government-approved facility.
Absolutely. I mean, I worked as a parole officer and I did this for a living, years ago. So I know the rules regarding that, and you're correct.
Yes. So anyway, I said to this woman, well, what's going on here? And she said, I said, well, she won't be going back. And she said, I said, I will organise her to do her community service elsewhere. And she said, I'll have to ask the church about that. I said, I beg your pardon?
Sorry, can I just clarify there? You're telling me that the New South Wales parole officer said she'll have to ask the church.
Yes, that is
about
correct.
What she can do regarding her supervision of somebody who was on a community service order.
That's correct.
Okay, that's a joke.
This is what I'm saying. The church has its members in key positions. Now, this is not the only one. I've dealt with
so that parole officer was in Hillsong Church, yeah?
obviously a member of Hillsong Church from what came out of that discussion.
Because did you not ask her whether she was involved in Hillsong?
Well, I did ask her. I said, what's the church got to do with this? I said, what have you got to do with the church? She went quiet. Then she asked me my name and who I was and what I was doing. I said, never mind who I am. I said, I think I know who you are right now. And I said, and I can tell you right now, she will not be coming back.
Now, when was this approximately?
This was in the 1990s.
Okay.
This would have been around about 97.
Okay, so we're looking at the late 90s.
Yeah.
And then Hillsong changed their name in about 2000.
Yeah, that was after
Frank
it
Houston
all came out about Frank Houston
being
and
a pedophile.
His own pedophilia with New
So
Zealand.
they tried to change the name, hey?
Yeah.
To
So
get
it
away
was
from
basically just another cover-up job to distance themselves from the pedophilia and to hide it. It was just another layer of blanketing it.
Yeah, okay. But you maintained that all the same people just were involved for years.
Oh, yeah.
So all the people who are involved in the sex trafficking and kiddie snuff filmmaking and kiddie porn and all that sort of stuff, they just continued to run the church and administer the church, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
After they changed their name to Hillsong.
Nothing changed. It was just under another name.
Well, as I say, dog excrement by any other name still stinks. So,
yeah, that's right.
Now, tell me, there's some key people that you mentioned to me regarding Hillsong, and one is the Hillsong accountant, Hans Tondel. Tell us about that.
Well, Hans Tondel was the accountant for the church, and the information I had was that he was known to Tess Knight as well, the mother of Samantha Knight, who also was murdered, and Michael Guider took to fall for that, I'd say, more than anything, in a deal to get his brother out of jail. It was a swap over, so to speak.
So how old was Samantha?
Samantha, I think she was about 10 at the time.
Okay, so about similar age.
It's all
to
in the media.
Helen.
I mean, it's all there to be found if people want to look.
Yeah, Samantha Knight. And the official story was that the coroner's report said she died of an overdose of Normicin or something.
No, that's what Michael Guidus said.
Okay, he said that, and yet we know. I've studied psychopharmacology as part of my master's in forensic psychology, and you can't die of Normicin like that. You can only die if you swallow your tongue or something like that. You can't actually overdose on it.
Exactly. So we know that this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, the cover-ups are just ridiculous. For anyone that's got any knowledge at all, it's so obviously and blatantly false, it's not funny. The cover stories they put out to cover it all up. Now, the accountant was Hans Tondel. His surname was pronounced Tondl. Now, he was found shot dead in the head, gangland style, in his car. Now, why would a supposedly nice, upstanding Christian quiet man be shot gangland style unless he objected to something or something wrong or uncovered something?
Or he knew something or was talking or was a security risk to the pedo ring at Hillsong. So he was actually found dead in a car at Mona Vale. I looked it up in the papers, yeah?
Yeah, I was told Redfern.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was told it was only a few streets away from Hillsong Church in Waterloo.
So then they've changed it to Mona Vale, have they?
I believe so, yeah, because I was told by the officers that he was found dead in
Redfern.
Redfern. Yeah.
And so you think he was involved in the money laundering?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was definitely. I saw the papers on several different companies they set up to launder the money, and some of the names that they attached to the money that they received, they called one lot of money love money, stuff like this. I believe that's in relation to the kiddie porn or some sales and whatnot.
So they got code names for kiddie porn, love money.
Oh, yeah, love money. Well,
or love offering. They often call it love offering in the church.
Yeah, there you go.
You love kids offering, yeah, righto.
Yeah.
So Who's this Michael Guider? What was his role?
Michael Guider was the man who was charged and ultimately pled guilty to the murder of Samantha Knight.
Yeah, and what was his relationship to anyone in all of this?
Yeah, well, that's what I'd like to know.
Preceding the whole crime.
Well, that's what they say, but
and they never found Samantha Knight's body.
No,
Yeah,
and I don't believe that. I don't believe the official story.
Yeah.
Same as I don't believe 9/11.
Or just like we don't believe Helen's death. You know.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The cold case.
Yeah, exactly right.
Pedos, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe any of their official stories.
Okay, so you
I've seen
also
too much, and I know too much. That's the problem.
Now, who are some of the big names in Hillsong who committed these crimes that were identified by the children?
Oh, Ian Longstaff. Ian Longstaff, he was an architect. And I believe, from what I do know, that he also designed another church, which was a Catholic church. But I believe it was his skills and his knowledge that is being used to, how do you say, like, create false rooms and doors and all that sort of thing for them to hide.
So hidden rooms for their rituals and for trafficking children and moving them around.
Yeah.
So where was the Catholic church that he designed?
That was in Kingsgrove.
Righto. And what about and that's Sydney?
Yes,
yeah, and he designed the original Christian Life Centre that your children were abused at?
I believe they had a hand in all of that, yeah.
Okay, and where was that one? That was the one at Waterloo?
That was Waterloo,
yeah, right.
in Young Street, Waterloo in Sydney.
Okay. So what did Ian Longstaff look like?
He was quite a tall man, slim to medium build, dark hair, and, they dressed very conservatively, like Mormons. So to speak, but to come across as clean cut and respectable and whatever, but far from it underneath it. It wolves in sheep's clothing, sweetie.
Oh, they are indeed, and this is what people have to understand. I mean, this Hillsong Church is turned into a mega church. It's the biggest church in Australia, and now they've expanded their pedo filth to England and LA and the USA, and they're spreading all across the world now.
Yeah. They're a threat to every child everywhere.
They are.
They have very good polished front.
Oh, yeah.
But underneath it, oof.
So, Ian Longstaff, tell us about how you got in contact with him, or how did your children...
Well, I knew Ian. I met Ian when I was a child. He was a local member of the community, so to speak. How they infiltrated the local area was... him and another man by the name of David Young used to come to the area and do like Sunday school, whole Sunday school sort of thing in the local park for the kids, and then give them lollies and whatever. But I mean, I was only a child then myself, so I knew this man. He wasn't a stranger, and so when I allowed my children eventually to go to Sunday school. I had no knowledge that this man was into what he was. It was interesting, though, that later on I was questioned as to, well, why did you let your children go there, And
was Longstaff ever charged?
No, they didn't even take a statement from him. Not even a formal statement.
So you're telling me the police didn't take a statement after your children...
That's exactly right. That's exactly what they did.
And would you consider him the main perpetrator?
Well, he was the main perpetrator in relation to my children.
And so the New South Wales Police failed to take a statement from the main perpetrator?
Yes, that's correct.
Did they do any investigation?
Oh, they basically did. Their investigations focused on me. How they could find a way to discredit me, to shut me up. In their reports, it actually stated there are concerns about containing the mother.
Sorry, the police report says there are concerns about containing the mother.
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's a good focus for a police
darling.
investigation into the disappearance of, children. Okay. And the ritual abuse and sexual
Yeah.
abuse and trafficking of children and porn filmmaking and righto. The
Yeah,
nice one,
so
Sydney
they were
Police.
more
Yeah.
concerned about containing me
Containing
and stopping
you.
me from talking than anything else.
Okay.
Now, that was in one of the conference papers that I got my hands on, and that was actually mentioned at the Sydney, the Children's Hospital in Camperdown.
Right.
So
Is this the same hospital that lost your child's files?
no, that was another hospital
Oh, okay.
that I went to when I had to take my daughter there for something.
Okay.
And when we went there, her name was on the computer still, but all the files, the paper files and
Yeah,
whatnot,
we're missing.
it was all gone. Same as the local doctor. When I got back in touch with the local doctor, when I was trying to get my real identity back, I contacted our old GP. Now, my stuff was there, but my kids wasn't.
Yeah, right.
Now, that's interesting again, because when I started getting back my original ID, 'cause as I told you, I was put into witness protection originally after the attempts to grab my kids and whatnot, which I believe they're going to make us disappear permanently to start with. Anyway, when we were given a new identity and everything, it was never registered or recorded or valid. We couldn't get passports, couldn't get jobs, certain jobs, couldn't get credit, because we didn't exist at law. It was all designed so that I believe now
To disappear you.
they were going to get rid of me. Now, what I discovered after all of this happened, and because as we got older and time went on, and we wanted to do other things, we couldn't do them. And I've asked the police to organise. I said, well, organise as a passport. No, we can't do that. It's federal. We're state, I said, well, you can't do this to me. All the kids, come on. And they said, well, you'll have to do it like anyone else. I said, well, how can I go over there with, bank cards and credit cards in this name and have trouble on a passport in that name and whatever? I said, you're going to raise suspicions on the other end. I said, you're going to put me at risk here. That's not acceptable. Anyway, so I started getting my real ID back myself so I could get a passport myself. And one of the things I did was I went to Medicare to get our original Medicare card back. And when I did that, they'd added another child to this Medicare card that I didn't have.
What name did they put the child?
They put Daniel was his
Daniel.
name. Now, this child
Do you think maybe the person who was going to, well, obviously replace you after they disappeared you, had a
Yes.
child called Daniel already?
Yes, I believe this was all set up.
Yeah, right.
Because there were several attempts on my life even after being put in witness protection around the time of the Woodrow Commission. So what I believe was happening was they were taking all the children's records, leaving mine there, so it would be as though I didn't have any children, or anyone who knew me, there was no records there. Now this other person, this other woman, obviously, was going to be me, and her child was added to the card, and my two children were still on the record of that account, a Medicare account. Now, when I found that out, I contacted a federal minister by the name of Albie Schultz. He was my local member for this area under federal law and federal parliament. Anyway, I explained the story to his office, and he referred it for urgent attention, and said the federal police were going to have a look at this. Well, Nicola Roxon, who was the federal attorney general at the time, who he passed the information on as well, she shut it down. She shut down any federal investigation into this.
So now, Nicola Roxon, federal attorney general, shut down the investigation.
Yes.
Which would have supported you in your abused children.
Yes.
Go, Nicola.
Now,
that's great.
When I found out, because I said, well, who's this child? I don't have any other children. But anyway, when I went into Medicare, they asked me when I was trying to get the ID back about what names were on there, and I gave them mine and my two kids. And I said, my daughter's got her own already, so I only need one for me and my son right now. And she said, what about the other child? And I went, oh, she said, and then she mentioned, the first time I went, I said, I don't have any other children. And she wouldn't give me the Medicare card, this one. So I had to go to another office on another day, and knowing that there's something else wrong here, and the woman said, what about the other child? And I said, and then she mentioned, because I could see on the screen, and because it was sort of on an angle, and I said, oh, that was my nephew. I had to lie, you know. I said, oh, that was my nephew. I said, I was looking after him back then. I said, she said, do you want him on the card? I said, oh, yes, please, because I wanted the evidence. I said, oh, yes, please. And when I see him, you know, I'll give him the number so that he can get his own too. She said, oh, okay. Didn't know any different, you know. And so, yeah, I got the card, and I got the receipt first until the card was sent out to me. And then I got the card with his name on it.
And you still got that card today?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So then I wrote to, I found out his date of birth. So when I wrote to Albie Schultz, and I spoke to him, his office first, and he told me to put it in writing, so I did, and I've sent it to his office and whatnot. And then when I said to him, you know, if this child was my child, then that child would have been put on the new identity when I was given the new identity in WITSEC. It's not on there. So I went and got then after that I went and got a driver's license in my new name. Well, the police out here were waiting for me. You know, they've been watching me for a while because I've been trying to get this mess that the state created sorted out, and they wouldn't sort it out. They refused because then they'd admit liability, see, for what they've done, and it would all come, you know, to a head. Anyway, so when I'm driving my car home from work one night, the police grabbed me. And then when they charged me, they charged me with fraud by trying to say that I'm using my maiden name and my married name, and I was committing fraud. Well, I put subpoenas into the court to produce all the evidence. Well, they engaged the Crown Solicitor's Office, because I sent subpoenas to the Road Traffic Authority to get the driver licence records, to birth, deaths and marriages to get all the birth, deaths and marriage records, and to the police and to Medicare. Now, the state agencies, which was the Road Traffic Authority and birth, deaths and marriages and the police, all engaged the Crown Solicitor's Office to defend them then against me. They produced a certificate from the Police Commissioner for secrecy to shut the court down so no one could hear this. The court denied me the subpoenas to defend myself or to produce the evidence that I was telling the truth. I also discovered at that time that someone else had used my driver's license when I first went into WITSEC and handed over all my original identity and was arrested and fingerprinted. So that established that they were me under that name then, because I'd never been arrested before at that time or anything like that. So they had this other woman who now was using my name, who had been fingerprinted, so they could confirm her identity. Then I find a Medicare card with another child added to it that obviously was going to be part of the identity of this other person. So, I mean, it doesn't take Einstein to work it out how they were putting her into my position where I had false documentation of who I was now, which was never recorded and didn't exist. So it was easy for them to wipe me out, her step into my role, into my position, so to speak, and take my kids and whatnot. But because I was smart enough and events turned out the way they did, it didn't happen, despite all the attempts on my life. And now that I have raised that, and I went into the Royal Commission now, the current Royal Commission, just to put it off record. I mean, I know it's nothing but a PR exercise, but anyway, I wanted it on the record. And when I spoke to Commissioner Fitzgerald, and I told him about the Medicare card, and I showed him the card, and he said, well, who is Daniel? I said, that's what I want to know. You tell me. I said, I've written to Medicare, and I've asked them for the records. They've refused me. I said, I don't work in these offices. I can't get access to the information. I said, but you can. I said, it doesn't take Einstein to work it out what's going on here. I said, I've got enough evidence, enough prima facie evidence and circumstantial evidence to put this together.
What did he say?
He just looked at me. He just gave me a funny look. And raised his eyebrows like, you know, yeah.
And did they do anything? Did they remedy anything?
As far as I know, they've done nothing. They're not going to do anything. They just wanted to know what I knew. I knew that.
So they knew where to shut you down again?
Well, they're going to try, but that's not going to work. The only way they're going to shut me down is put a bullet in my head. or knock me off in a car accident, or whatever. One of their means of
their
putting me into an
accidents.
accident.
Blow your car up again. Yeah, right.
Yeah, whatever.
Now, this is absolutely astounding. So, really, what you've got is the Australian government using the witness protection system to steal children off their parents, to put the children, reinsert the children back into the abuse system, and bump off the real parents.
Yeah.
So it's all just part of the. So witness protection is part of the child trafficking system.
I would say so, because the other factor is, when I was involved with the Woodrow Commission, now this one's interesting, the Woodrow Commission officers, they said to me, obviously your identity is blown because attempts had been made on my life. And they sent me back to witness protection to get them to assist me again, right? Now, because I was involved with the Woodrow Commission, which was investigating police and corruption and whatnot, the police officer, and her name was Megan Backhouse, she was vicious. She said, well, as you're helping the Woodrow Commission, you get them to help you. I had to walk out of there. I went home and made plans to move. And that's when they did the siege situation outside my house.
Ah, nice. So she coordinated. Who was that officer, do you remember?
Yeah, Megan Backhouse.
Megan Backhouse was the New South Wales police officer who said that to you.
Yeah.
And then next thing, the police sieged your house, but luckily you had the foresight and the intuition to leave. Yeah. And then next thing, when you went to the ministers, they contacted the police, who denied any knowledge of the siege.
That's right.
Nice one. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying to people. If you have any inkling of this sort of thing going on, you don't go anywhere near the authorities. You do not go near them, because they will target you.
Because the New South Wales Police are still part of this Sydney-based pedophile network.
Yes, of course
and
they
child
are.
sex
You've
trafficking
got to look at
and
the
prostitution.
Speedo affair. The Speedo affair was where police officers were getting payment from pedophiles not to act on them.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. What do you say?
I mean, that was the inquiry into that one, but that obviously, anytime there's any investigation with police, oh no, it's all covered up. There is no investigation. All it is a crop of rubbish.
And you did a lot of media coverage back then, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you went to Mike Munro of 60 Minutes?
Yeah, I did.
Tell us how that went.
Well, Mike, they more than anything, because of the Mr. Bubbles case, and then Ralph Underwager and co dragging those supporters of this, and we had psychiatrists and other people, professionals, who were saying this is real, this goes on, and were involved in supporting the children who were abused in the Mr. Bubbles case. Now, Ralph Underwager was brought over here to destroy that, and because these other people, such as Mike Munro, journalists, are reporting on it. He was an investigative journalist here in Sydney.
Back when you had investigative journalism in Australia, but you don't anymore.
Instead of those who just repeat what they're told to repeat these days. Now, they were dragged through the courts over in the States by Ralph Underwager.
Yeah.
Just shut them up. And, after that, the legal department of 60 Minutes of Channel 9, they didn't want to go ahead with what was said there because they were worried about Packer being sued. They said, oh no, Packer's got too much money. I'll sue him.
Packer was one of the pedophiles. What are you talking about? He raped Dean Henry and everyone else.
I didn't know that back then. I've heard a lot of stories over the years since then, but at the time I didn't know that. It didn't go to air. It didn't go to air, so they spiked that. So, what they call spike it. So,
and what did Mike Munro say about that? When
Mike Munro was horrified. He was very upset because he knew then that he'd made a mistake, being told not to report on the satanic ritual abuse that was involved with the Mr. Bubbles case.
Oh, right.
So he got a bit angry, and there was words and whatnot, from what I understand. And Yeah, he's no longer at 60 Minutes.
So did he leave 60 Minutes as a direct result of your story?
It's actually a direct result. I think there was other issues as well, possibly, but there was a few issues around that. So I'd say our matter was very much a part of the reasons why he left in disgust.
Well, it's interesting because Ian Leslie of 60 Minutes, these are, 60 Minutes was a very good show in Australia years and years ago. Now it's filthy. It works for ASIO and the pedo ring now.
Yeah, that's right.
The people who work for 60 Minutes now include Ross Coulthart, and I've had a run-in with him when he took my details. He never had the decency to speak to me personally. He phoned everyone I knew, asked me for evidence. I sent him my police statements. I sent him the federal police emails. I sent him information from New South Wales Victim Services, who determined on the balance of probabilities that Anthony Kidman had abused me and everyone else had abused me. All this, that was true, my allegations. All this sort of stuff. But he turned around and then rang my friends and associates and bagged me out to them and ran me down and saying, it's all a bit incredible, as if all these VIPs would have abused her, this sort of talk. And then I've since found out that there's a fellow called Darren in the UK who was a victim of the VIP pedo ring over there that 60 Minutes did a story on. Well, he's really angry at Ross Coulthart and has put all over Twitter, his negative experience of Ross Coulthart. And when I communicated with this guy via, email and all that, he turned around and he told me that, Ross Coulthart left him traumatised and really openly criticised him and spoke to him in a way that you would expect of a member of this organisation. And Ross Coulthart, and there's other victims, like down in South Australia, there's one fellow who was in contact, he ran a ritual abuse support network down there, and he, spoke to Coulthart and offered him all this information, multiple victims. They had evidence, they had, all these documents, because this is what Coulthart said, give me the evidence, show me the evidence. And, Coulthart found out everything this guy knew and then never contacted him again.
No, that's right. That's why I don't hand over any evidence to him.
No, and then,
don't give him anything.
And then there was this one particular so-called victim who was inconsistent in what he told me. I've had, 5 convictions. I've had 15 convictions. I've had 25 convictions of my perpetrators around the Sydney area. So I didn't know what was going on with him, and I'd been told by other people, like a certain victim, Gordon Myers, that, he's a fake. That guy standing there in the photo with, described the photo on Facebook, said, he's a fake. Never heard of him. He was never at Darrick and all this. Anyway, next thing...
Darrick, that's where my brother was.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a sec. But I then, was critical of Coulthart's approach to all of this. Well, something happened, because I was talking to victims and whatever, and something happened where Coulthart sent me this absolute tantrum in email to me. How dare you, criticise the, 60 Minutes, what's the meaning of this? We've got a great reputation, exposing child abuse and all this sort of rubbish. Yeah. And my sister-in-law, who's a journalist, took one look at it and said, wow, that's unusual. And she said, you must have ruined his story, Fiona. You must have wrecked his story. So I believe he was doing a fake story, or some kind of easy story. Like in England, he just walked into a story. He didn't even have to do any investigation or anything. And there's victims over there are unhappy with however he handled it over there. And it was a cover-up anyway, because the major feature of the ring in England was ritual abuse and sacrifice. And Jimmy Savile, for example, the first reports and complaints from victims were all of satanic ritual abuse.
Yes.
But all that side of it is conveniently covered.
It's all coming out now.
So 60 Minutes and the work... Yeah, the work that Steve McMurray, the research he's done into Ross Coulthart and his involvement with ABC Media Watch, the fellow who presents that, they're thick as thieves. And that's the show that absolutely slammed me and tried to make a mockery of me and told the nation basically I'm full of it and I'm a nutcase. Yeah. Because I came out about all this VIP stuff.
Say I was a nutcase.
Yeah,
but it doesn't happen. Yet I had medical evidence that was consistent and substantiated and corroborated the testimony of the children, and we're talking 6 and 7 years old at the time, And then we have a missing child who is officially listed as missing, who was identified. Then we have Medicare cards and other records that, you know, I've been able to find that what they've done. So how much more proof do people want to say that this
it's like, you know, when I put up some...
I'm tired of the naysayers and the doubters.
Yeah.
And you put in front of them and I say, well, hey, hang on a minute. I don't make Medicare cards. Well, then you explain how I got this. And they can't. They go, oh.
Yeah, right.
You know,
yeah.
I've had a gutful of that bullshit.
Well, do you know what? I mean, here I was. Everyone discredited me. Well, not everyone, but, you know, the people who are either pedophiles or supporting pedophiles.
Oh, naturally.
Went into... And people who are members of church and they're just, they're so hoodwinked. They're churchianity, you know, people, not Christianity. And, you know, here they are carrying on about everything I say. They're the ones who criticise you. And you've got this... I'll give you an example. I've got this moron on my page, and I've never been trolled by a Hillsong troll before. It's actually quite interesting. But this guy says, this is Dallas O'Connor on my page. He's affiliated with Hillsong, but he gets on there and says, when I put up a post, you know, 2 royal commissions were told Hillsong abducts, rapes, murders, sex traffics kids, makes kiddie porn snuff films. And this guy says, Dallas O'Connor says, they actually stand against all those things and support initiatives like the A21 campaign to tackle sex trafficking. What do you think of that, Deb?
that if it wasn't so sick, it would be funny.
Yeah. You know, and these are the apologists for Hillsong Church. For goodness sake, give me a break.
Yeah.
You know, you're not
exactly.
the only Hillsong victim I've heard from. Far out.
You know, spare me. I have got so much evidence. It's not funny.
Let me just give you another laugh. One of his other comments was, Frank Houston has never been part of Hillsong, which is originated in Australia, and he was in New Zealand. I'm sure there is abuse in all religions as it cuts across all social and ethnic classes. Churches are a focus of a Royal Commission in Australia, but to conclude Hillsong is a synagogue of Satan doesn't seem to gel. My view, anyway. Yeah, go Dallas.
How's that for a nice joke? Houston was the founder of what was known originally as the Christian Life Centre, which was then renamed as the Hillsong Church to cover up, to distance itself from the abuse that came out about Frank.
That's what I said. I said it was known as Christian Life Centre up until Frank Houston, who founded it, was exposed as a kiddie rapist in 2000. That's when and why they changed their name.
Well, that's why he fled to Australia in the first place, to get away from the allegations of abuse.
And apparently he abused more than 400 boys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how can these people, they're just absolute fools. How can they...
Well, I put them down. I don't think they're fools. I think they're plants. I think they're damage control agents who...
this guy. I think he's a troll. Yeah, absolutely. But
I think they deliberately go out.
He's trying to
discredit and attack anyone who brings up anything that would discredit
expose this.
That would expose them in any way.
But I can't believe in these mega churches so many thousands and thousands of people are hoodwinked by this. And yet when you... Like, I've got Christian friends who are in these horrible Assemblies of God churches... Yeah. Speaking in tongues, they don't even know what they're saying, and they, you know, and I tell them this, and I give them the evidence, and I tell them, you know, the details and whatever, and no, they wouldn't do that. Yeah. I mean, the worst, the most gullible ones are the ones who go to these, you know, Pentecostal churches.
That's my question too. Well, so how do you convince people, no matter how much evidence you have, that this is actually real and going on? I mean, if they refuse to look at it because it's too uncomfortable for them, or they don't want to go there, how do you protect other kids? How do you get to these people and say, listen, you know, this is what's happening. Here's the evidence, and I've got plenty, as I've said, and I can't reach people either because they just can't handle the truth. I mean, what do you say to these people?
Now hang on, Deb, but exactly, here you've got Brian Houston, right, appears before the Royal Commission,
Brian Houston.
And then the commission concludes that Brian Houston failed to report abuse and had a conflict of interest.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a big conflict of interest. He had to protect his business, Mr. 10%, they call him. I mean,
Well-
these people are charging people 10% of their income to belong in their church. I mean, you're talking, young mothers
Millions
and
and
parents.
millions, yeah.
And he's living the life of Riley
Oh, yeah.
and whatnot off the pain and suffering of others.
Because this is the prosperity message that Hillsong deliver. Yeah, I mean, God wants you to be prosperous. Well, meanwhile, the way they're making all their money is by prostituting our kids. God, help us. I mean, yeah, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth because I've grew up in in a church, and I saw when this Pentecostal rubbish took over in the 80s in Australia. And I was there. I was at church when it infiltrated Tweed's Church of Christ, and I saw the split in the church. And I went to one of these Assemblies of God when it first started up, the very first one up in the Gold Coast. Oh my goodness, this really obese, slovenly pig walked out on the stage, and all he did was talk about, he was a glutton, and he bragged about his gluttony, saying, I like my food, you know how much I like my food, and I know you're going to go to heaven, I know I'm going to go to heaven. I'm sat there and going, I don't think you're right, mate. And I was only 15 when I heard that. And this was my introduction to all this phenomenon that has since completely taken over Australia.
Yeah.
This is the main sort of church. It's them or one of their offshoots.
Pentecostal or anything like that. I was of the belief that when this Ian Longstaff was picking up my kids, I was of the belief that they were going to a Baptist church. Because that's what he belonged to originally.
What made you think that?
I didn't know anything about this Pentecostal stuff or anything like that. And when I was asked about it, I just went, "What? What are you talking about?" I had no idea.
So you thought it was because Baptists back then were quite conservative.
Yeah, that's right.
And none of this rubbish, and no feel good stuff.
No.
Now you were saying about Ian Longstaff that his mother was a witch, a high witch.
Yeah, so he was obviously generational into this because his mother was obviously into it as well. I don't know all the details of all that, but I know from what the children told me. Anyway, they ridiculed all that. And they, actually what really made me angry was the Woodrow Commission charade, is what I call it. It was just a scripted charade, a piece of theatre for the gullible public at the time.
Yeah.
Because when they brought the psychiatrist in on the matter, she was ripped apart on the stand, and her basically they tried to destroy her career and her credibility as a psychiatrist.
Who was her name? What was her name?
Her name was Anne Schlebaum.
How do you spell her surname?
Oh, Schlebaum.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, they tried to destroy her reputation and all the rest of it and her credibility. Then they brought the police in. Now, the police were obviously, how will we say this one? I've got to put it nicely, so to speak. Rubbish. He was brought in. His name was Malcolm Cox. Cox as in C-O-C-X, not C-O-C-K-X. Although, yeah, I could basically say that's his real name. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, he was given a promotion after this matter.
Of course.
Yeah, he got promoted because he did such a good job on me in shutting this matter down. Of course, that's what they needed to be done. So, anyway.
So you're saying about Ian Longstaff and his mother referred to... your daughter had a particular name that referred to the mother.
Yeah, she called her the hag.
Yeah, right.
Now, I didn't know what a hag was, or what, to me, a hag was an old witch,
Yes.
Stories. I didn't know anything about it.
A hag, to my knowledge, is there's a bit of a hierarchy within the covens and within Luciferianism, and a hag's a bit of she will be in charge, but of a more minor coven. So she's not not pure bloodline. You know what I mean? She's not in the elite sort of. Group.
Okay.
She's just one of those.
I don't know anything about hierarchies or anything like that with these sort of things. because I've never been involved or anything like that myself. So I'm not a survivor of the satanic ritual abuse myself. I'm just a mum who's gone out there and said, right, well, this is going on and this needs to stop, and I've done everything I can to do something about it, raise awareness, etc., so that people can protect their children. And as a result of that, and as a result of not shutting up like they told me to, they actually told me to my face to shut up and to be quiet. The more quiet I was, the safer I'd be.
Who told you that? The police?
Police, yeah.
Do you remember the names of the officers who told you that?
Yeah, I do.
What are they?
Royce Gorman. Now, Royce Gorman was the 2 I see on the backpacker case.
Ivan Milat case, the serial killer.
The Ivan Milat case, yes.
Now, how do you spell his name, that officer's name?
Royce, surname Gorman, Gorman.
Wow. So it sounds like he's a ritual abuse specialist, eh?
I'd say he's a damage control agent big time.
Wow.
Because when I contacted him after seeing some information in the paper, and I said, well, what's going... I said, it sounds like more satanic stuff here. He went, oh, no, there's none of that. No, that's all.
Oh, yeah, just that Milat, or whoever did it, chopped everyone up and arranged them in a pentagram.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right, eh?
No.
That's not ritual abuse indicative. Right, okay.
Yeah, they think everyone's an idiot, you know?
Somebody was just having a picnic and...
Yeah. I mean, you know, the insult to your intelligence is phenomenal, you know?
Mm. This Ian Longstaff, did he strike you as intelligent or just cunning?
Cunning.
Yeah, see, people need to know there's a difference between IQ and cunning.
Yeah, they just struck me as cunning. Now, I believe also that that he went into hiding. I know he was put into Melbourne because I told the police that if they didn't get him, I would. And I meant it.
Well, he just terribly abused your kids, hadn't he?
Yeah. Look, I went to the police because my children had named other children and other adults involved who I didn't know who they were. I went to the police to try and protect these other children. As a result, I got attacked. I was ripped to shreds. I've gone through hell and back, and I'm still, trying to put one foot in front of the other, even today, just to stay alive and protect myself and my family. And, I've lost in the last few years in all this. I've lost my sister. I've lost my brother as well. So I don't have any real support or anything like that.
Is that the brother that went to Darrick?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and we had a talk just before he passed away about that. And I actually sent him a message, which I've still got on my phone, as a copy of that I sent to him he could go to this solicitor's, because that was advertised from the Royal Commission that's currently on now, that he could go there and tell his story and make a claim and maybe even get it on the record. Shortly thereafter, my brother was found dead. So
yeah, and what date?
I haven't seen the autopsy report or anything yet, so I'm not going to comment on that just yet.
What was the date of that death?
The 31st of October.
There you go. Folks, that's Halloween. That's a sacrificial date. And you believe your brother was abused when he was younger by this Ian Longstaff?
Well, Ian Longstaff was involved in that with, I believe he was, because my brother went away on a camp when he was 10. Now, another guy that was involved with Ian Longstaff and that at the time was by the name of John Baxter. Now, John Baxter eventually, he drove ice cream truck too. Now, he got involved with the family and was taking their boys, because he did Bible studies at the house and whatnot, went around people's houses and that as well.
Is this part of the Youngies Club?
Yeah, he was part of Youngies Club at the time with David Young and whatnot as well. Now, this guy, John Baxter, he eventually was convicted. Now, what happened was he took the boys, he told the parents that, they're going to go to work and he would pay them and whatnot doing the ice cream. Now, he took them, they stayed overnight in a motel. Well, one of the boys ran out of the door of the motel and John Baxter was then arrested. Now, he was convicted of sexual abuse of these boys and he was in Long Bay Jail. Now, oh yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of other connections.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence here, isn't there?
Oh, I've got a hell of a lot. I've got a hell of a lot of evidence where the dots connect, the people connect.
Well, how old would Ian Longstaff be today?
Probably be in his 80s now.
Okay. And you said you heard reports, when he went to Melbourne, you heard reports of him sexually assaulting children in Melbourne after police moved him on.
Yes, that's right.
So police actually put him under witness protection, yeah?
I don't know. I'm assuming that that's what they did, because I couldn't find him here anymore. He disappeared, so to speak. So.
And he had a prominent role in Hillsong before he left?
Yes. Yeah, very prominent role.
What was he? Was he on the elders board, or what was his?
I'm not sure of his exact position, but from what I do know, he had a lot of influence.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
So, and plus, you think as an architect, he was involved in the design of Hillsong when it was Christian Life Centre at Waterloo.
Yeah.
The building is the building still there today? You're saying?
Beg your pardon?
Is the building still there that he designed at Waterloo?
Yeah.
So it would still have the hidden doors and stuff in it?
Well, I'd say so.
And did the police inspect that place? Since Helen, Karapetis was murdered there, did the police go and do forensic analysis?
They never took the children to identify the site. There was no forensic examination. There was nothing. You can't find evidence if you don't look for it.
So instead, they came and
say that there was
house.
no evidence when they didn't go and look for it, and there was no examinations, there was nothing. I mean, come on, what's that bullshit? I mean, if you and I did this, they'd be all over us like a rash. I mean,
they would have taken our children off us if we did a small fraction of this.
I mean, well, it's so farcical. I mean, you can pull it apart. Anyone with half a brain can pull apart the flaws. That when they tell you, oh no, we did a full and thorough investigation, you say, oh yeah, well, what did you do? Did you go and examine the place? Is there any? What did you find? What was your findings? There's nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they try and tell you that bullshit. Oh, we did a full and thorough investigation. Yeah, where? What? Please.
And yet there was heaps of medical evidence of your children having been sexually assaulted by these people.
Yeah.
And psych reports, yeah?
Yeah. The lot. We had everything.
Righto.
So, I mean, that's all provable. It's all documented. There's no question there. And we also won in the, when they tried to shut us down with the VCT, Victims Compensation Tribunal. We won that.
You won the appeal. You told us that one.
I mean, yeah. I've got a court who has validated that this is real.
Now,
what more can I do?
So your brother, now you grew up in Glebe, yeah, in Sydney.
Yeah, in Sydney,
which is right near Sydney Uni, which is a centre for this pedophile ring as well. Yeah. And so your brother ended up at Darrick, which is where a lot of boys ended up from that area, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
So, and Darrick, now you've heard in the news lately that the Northern Territory has been exposed.
Yes.
ABC News sat on the story for years and years and years while the abuse kept going everywhere. But the Northern Territory has been exposed for just, committing Guantanamo Bay type abuses against 10-year-old children in detention centres up there. And yet this has been going on since detention centres opened in Australia, including at Darrick. There was dreadful murders, rituals, Luciferian rituals, and pedophile visits and prostitution and trafficking occurring, at Darrick. So, and
nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing shocks me anymore.
And when this Royal Commission came up, this second one, because this is our second one in 20 years or whatever, into the same ring, you went to your brother and said, look, the Royal Commission's looking into, these things in Darrick and whatever, why don't you go, Yeah. And next thing he's dead within, weeks?
Yes.
On Halloween?
Yes.
Right. And you're saying that at that stage there's no visible signs of death?
Yes, and I don't know what happened, so...
How old was he when he died?
He's 50.
Okay, so that's fairly young, isn't it? Oh, okay.
So, you know, I'm the only one left now out of my brother and my sister, out of the 3 kids without my family.
Yeah.
But what I'm really concerned about is who is this other child? Who is Daniel?
Mm.
You know, is Daniel being abused left, right and centre here
The
now?
child on the mysterious child on
the
the
child on the Medicare card.
Medicare card.
Where is this child? Who is this child? You know, this is one of my concerns that is sort of, it's been very distressing for me because I haven't been able to find out any information about who this child is. Now, when we're talking about child protection issues here, that's been my focus for all these years. How do I protect these children? What can I do?
And really, you've done a stellar job. I mean, no one can question that.
I've put my life on the line.
Yes, you have.
You know, it's almost cost me my life.
It's cost you everything you own. Just you know.
Yeah. I have
cost you your health.
Financially, I still do. I still do struggle financially sometimes. You know, there's times where, you know, I've had to give every last cent I've had and borrow money just to feed me and myself, you know, later on. You know, just to make sure that somebody else and their kids got out, you know. So, you know, I've done whatever I could. I mean, there's nothing else I could have done that was within my means, you know. So, and it's not an easy road to go down. I'm not asking anyone else to go down that road. What I am saying is I'm just trying to raise awareness so that people can protect their own children and not to disregard other people's stories just because the official story says, oh, no, that's not true. That is more than likely the biggest cover-up job going and a discreditation process. It's what I call character assassination or kill the messenger that's ongoing here. It's not the fact that these people are not telling the truth. They more than likely are. The fact is that the system is designed to protect the perpetrators, not the victims.
Absolutely.
And that's my focus here.
Now, Deb, you dropped a bombshell the other day when you told me that you'd had some information on the Beaumont children. Now, the Beaumont children is a very, very famous abduction that occurred. When did that occur? That was... How long ago was that?
That was in the 60s or the 70s?
Yeah, I thought it was the 60s. I thought, is it that long ago? So 3 little kids were playing by the beach, playing at the beach on their own.
It was Glenelg Beach in South Australia.
Yeah, in South Australia. And they went down a few days in a row, didn't they? And then they were approached by a stranger, this bloke who, got their trust, groomed them, and next thing they went missing. So the parents lost all 3 children. But you've got some light to shed on that case, yeah?
Yeah. While working in this area, we were contacted by a woman who said that she was Jane Beaumont. Now,
how long ago was this that you...
this is in the 90s when I was very active doing all of this.
Yeah.
So, 50 years ago they disappeared. In January 1966, there you go, because it was...
Wow, it's a long time ago.
66? I think, hang on, 66 or 76. I'm just going to have a look. I spoke to this woman who said she was Jane Beaumont.
How did you come into contact with her?
She contacted me via a group I was working with at the time. And...
Because you were people need to understand, you were high profile then. You were in the media and you were hanging around Deidre Governor and
Brisbane and Franco Arena.
And Franco Arena and all those real high profile ones.
I was on the board. I was a founding member of one group, and I was on the board of another, and I was also involved with several other groups. I supported psychologists, psychiatrists, victims. If they got, the psychologists and psychiatrists, because of their profession and their standing, they couldn't do or say some of the things I could.
Yeah.
So they would ring me. So I could support or, do other things that I had to do with these children and unoffending parents to keep them safe. and also ask questions that they couldn't ask either. But I could sit there and have a conversation with them that they couldn't, because if they did, and anything went to court, it would be considered contamination, or they would use it to destroy it. But I could ask questions and whatnot, and therefore, because I wasn't in that professional capacity, so to speak. But once I got that information from them, then I could then be a witness as to what they told me if it went to court as well. Mm-hmm. Just as a normal person who's doing just support work, volunteering as a support worker. So therefore, I didn't have to watch the professional standards of what I could and couldn't say. It was just general good conversation between people, and what they told me then was then I could be used as a witness in evidence of what was said to me. So in that capacity, I was effective in eliciting, because I could ask the right questions because I had knowledge in all of this, where these people, these people didn't have that. And I could get information about who else was involved. I could ask questions and get information and pass that on. Yeah. Now, when we're coming back to Jane Beaumont contacted this group that I was with, and they put her to me. Well, at that stage, I had no money left and whatever. So I contacted Ron Hicks. Now, Ron Hicks, as I told you, he was an advisor to Deidre Griffin at the time, and he also worked for New Idea. Now, and he was the one who helped with Deidre and me with my case in the beginning. Now, so I contacted Ron Hicks, and I said, look, this is what's happening. I need some financial support here and whatnot to get this. And I said, look, if you can help me to get this woman out and to get her the help she needs and whatnot, you can probably have one hell of a story after it. I said, but you've got to work with me. What he did, he jumped all over it. He did his investigation. I didn't even tell him where she was. He had my phone number. Obviously, they did record checks and whatnot and found out where she was. Oh. Now, he went and got the original police officer that was involved in the case. His name was Detective Swan. Now, I met Detective Swan in Sydney and spoke with him on this case. They went to Jane's house, knocked on her door, all without me. She went off a trolley, and I don't blame her. I do not blame this woman one bit. All I tried to do was get funding to help her. And they went behind my back because they were after a story. I mean, I was disgusted. I marched into the New Idea office and I said to Ron Hicks after this, and his boss at the time, Collins, I said, your name is Mud. I said, how dare you? Because Fiona said, and she put out death threats on people who exposed us, who were exposing her, who she'd come to for confidential help.
Jane did.
Jane.
Jane.
Yeah. Now, in our conversations, Jane told me that the other two Beaumont children, are still alive, but they don't know who they are. They've got new identities. Now, that fits in with what I'm saying about the new identities and what was given out by even the New South Wales Police with us at the time, where these new identities were never real and never recorded and whatnot. But
but the Beaumont's parents didn't know that they were still alive.
No. But that's what I'm saying about what I think was going to happen with my children.
Yeah.
I think I was going to be knocked off and my children were going to be taken.
Just give
and someone else was going to step into my shoes. And if anyone asked any questions, they'd say, no, she's fine. She doesn't want to be contacted and she's in witness protection. And therefore, under law, they didn't have to give out any information. It was a perfect cover.
Wow.
It's a perfect cover operation. That's all it is. You are more dangerous if you are in more danger if you go into witness protection than not. I can assure you of that.
Well, there we go, folks. If you're a victim of this and you're considering witness protection, run a mile.
Yeah, that's my advice. Run a damn mile, because the other thing is when I had to get the Witness Protection Act law changed because it didn't incorporate those before '95, and when the act came about, the Witness Protection Act, they didn't have an act before that. So they did all this without legislative authority. This was just marked down as a police special operation. Now, given that we've got police all through this that are in damage control mode and agents or directly involved, isn't that a big red flag for anyone?
Yeah. That
they have a special operation that's not under any scrutiny, and it wasn't legislated about how they had to go about it. And they had access to documents where they could issue identities to people, to anyone. Now, what about criminals who want to launder money and whatnot? Setting up false identities for them and bank accounts and everything else.
Oh, and pedophiles, they often go under different identities. Yeah. By law in Victoria, they can get new birth certificates.
Yeah.
They can get totally new birth certificate, and there's no, on the pedophile's new birth certificate, there's no record of their previous name.
Yes, and how
then they can go interstate and start all over again.
Yeah.
That's current law. I studied all that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same for those who have sex change operations as well, so people don't know that they were once male or female, the opposite gender. You know, they use all these sort of tricks and traps. But anyway, what I'm also saying is when I started going apeshit, basically, over, because as time went on, my children, as I said, couldn't do careers and whatever. They couldn't, put it this way, they couldn't, if they wanted to be a doctor, they couldn't go in because they weren't real. Who were they?
Yeah, they didn't exist.
They didn't exist. So, you know, I'm trying to sort this out so that we could get passports and my children could have careers and, you know, for example, my son, this is another example besides my daughter's situation. My son, he was in the building trade. Now, he had forklift licence and all the rest of it, you know. But anyway, they changed that from Department of Fair Trading, where you got your ticket and whatnot, so you could operate vehicles and machinery. Anyway, they changed it with the building inquiry. And so now anyone who, in that trade, if you had licences and whatnot for operating machinery, you now had to do it through the Road Traffic Authority, the Transport Department. So in order to get a new licence, he had to produce a valid birth certificate. He didn't have one. So he lost all his qualifications.
Wow.
He could not go to work anymore. Because he couldn't do anything because he didn't have a valid licence and he couldn't get one.
That's just disgusting. This is disgusting.
Same as my daughter, she got offered promotions and overseas postings because she's highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And she couldn't take them. She couldn't go because she couldn't get a passport and she couldn't pass a security clearance.
This is disgusting.
So I tried to fix the problem, hence me going back, trying to get my real identity back and everything, to try and regather all the original documents, and to try and get all that together, and also doing minor matters like traffic, to get the court to assist me because the police wouldn't, the ministers wouldn't, no one would touch this. It was in the too hard basket. They were wondering, I think they were worried about what would come out. Now, I've even had a magistrate in the local court say to me, "You were never in witness protection." Oh, yeah?
Who was that magistrate that said that?
That was the magistrate Robert Walker. Yeah, I just don't want to say where, but yeah, Magistrate Robert Walker, because that gives away where I am, but because you don't know who's listening. But anyway, I think
eventually everyone's going to be listening to this, Deb.
What I also wanted to say about this identity issue, when after I got the law changed, the police went automatically, without my consent, without me knowing about it, they went to the Supreme Court to have my identity validated, like to have it added. Now, if they had to go to the court to do that, how come they didn't have to do it in the first place? Now, I was never told. Now, I don't know how they managed to get this around, because they would have had to have my signature on a piece of paper or something, I assume, to say that I consented to this. They didn't have that from me, and I wasn't at the court, so who went to the court?
Wow. Who
went to the court to get them to change my name? Now, the police went behind my back to change my name in court without my signature on a piece of paper giving them authority to do so.
And do you know the names of the people in charge of that procedure?
Oh, yeah, I do. I just can't say at the moment.
Okay.
They've already threatened me that if I say anything about witness protection officers and whatnot, that they'd throw the book at me and they'd lock me up for 5 years. Even though I'm not, the Act doesn't actually apply to me in one respect, I don't doubt the veracity of their threats. To finally get me one way or another, yeah. I've had a sergeant threaten me that if I ever said anything. Now, when they threatened my daughter and told her she couldn't say anything, she said, "Well, I was a child. I didn't sign anything. I didn't go into any agreement or contract." She said, "And you haven't approached me since I turned 18. So I'm not bound by anything." and I'm a victim and I can tell my story.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh.
Good on
I
him.
mean, so, you know, here we have the police being able to issue new identities. You have the Department of Births, Deaths and Marriages giving them blank forms or whatever and issuing identities. You have bank accounts being set up. You have Medicare involved. You have the department. Now, when they gave me my license, I was taken through a back door and just given a license over the counter. There was nothing. Just go in and get one. Now, so then you have all these government departments.
Okay, so is this in your original name or the new name?
The new name.
Oh, so you've got all these documents
when I went
now.
for my license, I had to go and pass tests and all the rest of it and go through normal channels. And when they gave me the new identity, they took me through a back room and just punched in a name and whatever, and there you go, there's your license. But you know what? That license didn't show up on the record until I renewed it the following year, and then it became, that's when it was given to me, a full year later.
Yeah, right. This is similar.
So for the first year, there was no record of anything. So what I'm saying is, when the police were doing all this, for a whole year you could run amok and there was no record of you, and you had a valid license, and valid anything else that they gave you, bank accounts, identity documents and all the rest of it. Yeah. How great was that for criminals?
Yeah. Well, Gordon Myers, another victim of Derek Minder and all that, his beef with the system over this identity change thing, he went into witness protection as well, was that he couldn't get his truck driving licence back. So then he lost his truck over it all. He had a big rig and, you know, and he's really upset about all that.
They try and destroy you any way they can.
He said it was to keep him quiet.
They limit your means and they will restrict you. The old adage is no money, no fight, right? So they will make sure that you don't have the means to get the money or earn the money or whatever in any capacity. So if his means of earning a living was via driving, therefore they would destroy his license. If you were in any other capacities, they would destroy you there too. Now,
they've done that to me. They destroyed all my careers.
That leads me to another case I was dealing with where the father was a non-offending parent. Now, the mother was involved in this one. Now, his daughter came out and told him what was going on. Now, because the other two eldest ones were his stepchildren, and they would be into it from when they were little with the mother, they went against the father. They were told to give evidence against him that he had abused them. Because he started exposing what his own daughter had said, what was going on. Now that she disclosed that there was police involvement here, that they brought the baby in, a female officer in uniform carried the baby in to be sacrificed, that they were involved in cocaine. She called it coca.
How old was she?
She was, I think, 9 at the time.
Yeah.
Now, so what they did to shut him up, because he's a man, God love him, because he was male and a non-offender, they set him up to be a pedophile against the other two stepdaughters who were involved in the cult. Now, when he tried to fight it, he was threatened because they grabbed his daughter. They took her. They kidnapped her. They told him to shut up or he'd never see his daughter again. So he had to wear that and be convicted as a pedophile when he was not a pedophile in order to save his daughter. And he's never seen her again since.
So he lost her anyway.
He lost her anyway. But it was a way to shut him up and discredit him. That he was a perpetrator.
Which police unit did that to him?
That was WA in Western Australia.
Whereabouts?
He was in Joondalup. Now, I bought, now this is the other interesting part about that. Now, through the networking around Australia that I was doing back then, I met him back in 93 or something like that. And he was telling me then, and he had his daughter with him at the time. And they were targeting his daughter and him at that time as well. And he was getting threatened and all the rest of it. Now, he sent me over the tape recording of her interview. Now, I took that into the police, into the Woodrow Commission as well as a lot of other evidence on his case, because it linked to people over here. Right? The people involved in her occult abuse linked to people over here in New South Wales.
Yeah, because it's nationwide. It's international too.
That's right. I know that now. But at the time, you know, I was saying it was national then, and, you know, I didn't know about international links. I learned it a lot more as time went on. You got to remember, back then I didn't have the internet.
Oh, I know.
So, you know, it was, you know, information gathering was not as easy as it is today. So, you know, a lot of it was telephone, fax, you know, libraries, meetings.
Yeah, meeting up.
A lot of work and a lot of
being
running
shot
around.
at.
Yeah, you know, so anyway, so I took all that to the Wood Royal Commission as well. Now, I still have the records of that when they sent it, the list back to me of what I sent them in. Now, after I did that, that's when not long after that, they took his daughter. And anyway, they locked him up. He was a convicted pedophile then. So after he was released and all that, he left the state. He started again. First off, he went to Monash University to do criminology to fight the system. He realised then that you can't fight the system within it because it's so corrupt. So he went into healing. He went into being a holistic healer, and also psychology, counselling, and whatever to heal the victims, to see what he could do there. Since then, he's now been set up again by someone because he started getting on his feet again. So now he's before the court again currently on charges where he's done nothing wrong. Consistently set up.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's so easy for them to do this,
concern.
isn't it? When you've got all the police and the judges and family courts and social workers everybody's involved.
Oh, yeah.
And on the side of the pedophile ring.
I think I told you about one case that I was dealing with where Professor Brent Waters actually rubbed his finger across his throat from ear to ear, you know, and slashing motion.
Now, who was that officer?
No, that was a professor of psychiatry, Professor Brent Waters.
Brent Waters, he gave you the slit throat sign.
Yeah, to shut up, in other words. And that case, that was where the child, because the mother was...
now, hang on, is he a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Did you report him to the medical board?
It's one of the top three.
Did you report him to the... Did you report this Professor Waters to the medical board for what he did?
No, I didn't even bother. I just rang him and told him I'm watching him. I said, we're watching you. He said, yeah, good, we're watching you too.
So he spoke on behalf of the pedophile ring?
Yeah.
And that was obvious from what you said?
To shut her up. And anyway, they awarded the child to the father.
Is he still working?
Beg your pardon?
Is he still working?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does he work?
He works out of Sydney.
In a private practice?
Chris Ricard Bell, as I said, was the psychiatrist in my matter who was put on the stand and torn apart by and it was shown that it was a false report that he did against me. So, yeah.
I don't think it's too late, Deb, to put in an APRA notification against this Dr. Waters.
What's the point? He's a professor. He's well renowned.
Well, but Deb, I put in a notification against Dr. Anthony Kidman, and he was dead in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, well, that might be a good thing to do then.
You know, I don't know. All this stuff.
Him. Once, you know, if I put something out, I don't know.
I really think there needs to be a notification against this.
I just don't have any faith in a system that is obviously so corrupt with the experience that I have. I mean, I've got too much experience in all this, and you know, it gets quite tiring. You know, I mean, it's exhausting when you're constantly battling to stay alive and to watching your back and living on a knife's edge, and you know, it can be quite difficult after a while to, you know, keep your energy levels up, even, you know, just to function. It can get very, very tiring.
Oh, look, I understand. You know, I was thrown out of psychology because, you know, I took a stand the way you are by people involved in a Luciferian cult at Bond University. And, you know, one of the lecturers now is just, he'll be going through court forever on pedophile charges. Paul Wilson, who was head of psychology and head of criminology, actually, and then he was Dean of Humanities, which was head of psychology. And, you know, he was involved in a huge pedophile ring based in Brisbane. And, you know, these people, and then, you know, they conspired with the Queensland Psychology Board, which is a division of APRA, which, you know, you'd complain to in Sydney. Or in Sydney, you go through the HCCC as well. But, you know, I know how these people work, and I'll tell you another story. I worked as a parole officer, and anyway, I did a bit of fill-in work in Queensland Corrective Services at the Burleigh office, and this head of corrective services there, this is a woman who had a history of having complaints placed against her, but she came to manage Burleigh Head's office, and the officer who was there for 20 years was seconded against his will up to Beenleigh, which was like an hour's drive away. Anyway, this woman came in, and I tell you what, she systematically destroyed the office. That office had been fully functioning for 20 years, and she came in, and I saw her pin a young officer named Chris to the wall, and he was about 18, and she had him up the wall, and she's screaming at him, "You're effing hopeless," and all this, in front of offenders who were coming in to report, you know, for community service orders and whatever. Anyway, she got me aside one time, and we were down at the Tugun Beach, a life-saving club, we had a function there, and she got me aside and she showed me her ring, and her ring had an encircled pentagram on it, and at the edge of each pentagram was a different coloured stone.
Yeah.
And it was the Order of the Eastern Star symbol, and one that Anthony Kidman used when I was younger as well. Anyway, she said, "Oh, have you seen my ring, Fiona?" I said, "Oh, no," I lied. And she says, "Oh, look, this is my coven ring. There's 5 of us in this coven, and every year, every 2 years, no matter where we are in the world, we get together. We meet every 2 years." And then she said one of her the members in a coven was a pottery teacher from Queensland College of Art, which is where I studied, and I knew this woman. Anyway, and she just said, "Fiona, if you play your cards right, you'll go far in management." And I just looked at her, I looked at the ring, and I said, "No, thanks." I said, "I'm not management material." And then the next day I put in a huge sort of notice against her and what I had observed around the office. And she came up to me and she pinned me against the wall and stuck her lips inches from mine and, you know, screamed at me and all this sort of stuff and bullied the hell out of me and gave me 5 minutes to leave the office. And, you know, and this was done with the blessing of Queensland Corrective Services. And then my lawyer rang always in these organisations, it's always the second person who actually runs the organisation. So she was like, you know, second in charge, but she's actually in charge. And she screamed at my lawyer, said, "We can do whatever the F we like." And he says, "No, you effing can't." Now, these are the sorts of people we're dealing with. I've had the same thing
where they've said to me, police and others, "We can do whatever we like. We don't care about the law." When I said, "You can't do that, that's against the law," they said, "We don't care. We don't care about the law."
No, we are the law, is what they tell me.
That's right. That's what they've said. We are the law.
You know,
this is what I mean with people. You know, if they're thinking of, if they think, someone's abused my child, or they've been abused. If you think for 1 minute, for 1 second, that going to the police, like normal people would normally think, that these people are going to actually do anything to protect you or your children, think again. Think again. The only thing that's going to happen to you and your children is you're going to be in a whole world of shit that you don't know what you're doing. And you've got no idea of what's coming. They will have you running rings around the place and you will have no idea where to turn next. And that's the fact.
They'll gun you down like that Hillsong accountant.
They've shot at me.
You're dispensable. No, that's like we said last interview. It runs like the mafia.
Yes, it does.
You know, if you stuff up within their organisation, they will not hesitate to take you and shoot you.
They will take you out. Exactly right. They will take you out. So anyone who thinks that they've got half a chance or any chance at all, or that there's got to be someone there, no, the decent ones are controlled, and you've got no hope, and I mean no hope.
That's like this one who caused all this trouble at Bond University. I had this weird dream when they just came for me at that uni. And I was only 2 subjects short of a 2.5 years forensic masters, I'd done 6.5 years of study. I was 6 years of study at this stage. And I had this dream one time. It was a weird dream, and it was long before she did anything or caused any trouble. And I just had this dream that we're up the top of this Irish castle, and everybody from the forensic psychology class was stuck out on posts up and down the wall of this Irish castle, and I, was sitting perched like birds, like budgies on these posts sticking out of this castle wall. Bizarre. Anyway, next thing, she started taking risks and spinning around this post, going wee wee wee. And I remember thinking, "Oh, don't do that. You're gonna fall if you keep doing that, taking that risk." And I remember nearly falling myself. And we were perched equally up the top, and everyone else was below us. And I remember just nearly falling myself and just making it over the edge of the wall. And then this woman fell to her death, and she splattered like a 9/11 victim. And I remember making my way down the stairs and walking out of that castle, and the whole forensic class, Elise Christini and all these people went running over, concerned about this woman. And I remember not feeling angry that she was dead. I didn't feel glee, but I just remember thinking, this is none of my concern. I'm walking away from here. Yeah. And it was funny. And then it was a long time later that she made a move against me on behalf of someone else at the uni who's a predator. And it was really, and I really believe that person will be suicided. Yeah. That person, they are so cocky.
Dreams are symbolic and very prophetic at times, I find.
I've had more than that. I've had an astounding one, which is for another time. But what I'm saying is these people will get their just desserts in the end. Yeah. And because I know someone posted, like I'm a Christian, and someone posted a comment. Someone said something very nice, saying, "Oh, the Lord's with you," and all this sort of thing. And someone else said, "Oh, yeah, like he looked after her when she was being abused when she was a kid," and these things. And I get that. I get both perspectives, but the Lord does look after us victims, and even those people like Helen, who, it moved me to tears about Helen because she looks a lot like my daughter, and she was the same age at the time he told me about it all, and it just breaks my heart. But at the same time, I know that those kids, when they are murdered, like this fellow's daughter that you were talking about in WAH, that daughter's probably not here anymore. I know they go to a better place than this, and I'm very confident of that. And, the most important thing in this life is to try and do as much as we can to be a voice for those kids who aren't here to cry out for themselves.
Exactly. For those who don't have a voice. That's what I've done. I've been down this road for so long now, and it's got to a point where I don't know how long I can keep it up for, because it is, like I said, very draining, and it's also very dangerous, and it's also very costly. I mean, not just, it's costly financially as well. When you don't have the means to do and keep going, like I don't have an organisation, I don't have that support. It's difficult to do this sort of work to help others when you're in that position and constantly, battling. Just to pay your bills when everything's going on everywhere else, to support everyone else. There's a limit. There's a limit to what you can do, and I just had to learn. But there were so many times I would go beyond my limits because I just couldn't say no. How could I say no to someone who was in dire straits and their children's lives were on the line? I couldn't say no. I mean, what would that make me? I mean, I couldn't live with that. If something happened to these people and, they'd come to me for help and I didn't help them, it's a very difficult position to be put in.
It would be impossible if we didn't call on a higher power. I mean, you have to have a faith. And
I do have a faith. I just don't have anything to do with a religion.
Oh, religion has got nothing to do with Christianity. I don't know of any Christian church in Australia. I've never in my life in Australia encountered a Christian church.
No,
I haven't.
I think it's always been that way ever since the English came here. I think it's been an established thing with the English for a long time. Now, speaking of English, when the children from England, this goes back, this is historical, when the children were stolen, and that from England, and brought out here to Australia.
Yeah.
A lot of told their
Around the
parents
war.
were dead. These are the forgotten Australians, so to speak. These children that were brought out here as slave labour and as sex toys, basically.
Yes, they were prostituted, they were trafficked.
Yeah, they were trafficked, and they were put in these monasteries, like these children's homes run by the churches. And the churches were often built, and these monasteries were often built on the slave labour of these children who suffered horrendously at the hands of the church and the state, because the state allowed it. I mean, let's face it. So, we have all of this evidence, historical evidence of what's gone on here. And, people need to stop putting their heads in the sand and saying, hey, hang on, this is documented. It is here in history. It's undeniable. So why are we still denying it?
Well, you think, Deb, what's coming out in the media recently, there's two things that just come to mind right now. One is the detention centre incident where they're torturing children, 10-year-old children, like Guantanamo Bay style, sticking things over their heads and all this terrible, stripping them and calling them names and all this horrible stuff, which I think is only a fraction of what actually has gone up in happened in the Northern Territory. But the other one, Deb, is this, I said that one of the main pastimes of these pedophiles is when they're tightly organised, the elite pedophile rings, they permit pedophile hunts. So they go for hunts for children.
Oh, yeah.
One of their favourite sports people is to let children on the loose on a big property, owned by Kerry Packer or someone like that, and then they hunt children for sport. And now it's only just... Now, everyone laughed at me when I said that, Deb, yet it's just come out in the newspapers in recent weeks that this is exactly what they did in the Hunter Valley.
From the evidence that and the information I've collected over the years, they don't only hunt children. They will teach children to hunt.
Wow.
They will let an adult loose, and they will disable them in some way so that they can only hobble and whatever. And they will set the children in their training, in their mind control after the adult. Teach them to kill. I mean, it's very similar. I mean, you see all these TV programs. I mean, a lot of these movies that they put out, they're actually telling you in a way that they can, the only way they can. And it's not, a lot of people think it's entertainment. It's not. It's actually, it's
titillating.
The moviegoer telling you exactly what's going on. One of the prime movies of that is Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson. Now, Mel Gibson was mind-controlled and brainwashed to do certain things, and he was programmed to also go out and kill the father of Julia Roberts in the movie, and he couldn't do it. They actually became friends. And that is a prime example of the truth, what's actually going on out there. It is actually telling you, it's in your face. And I have dealt with that firsthand with victims telling me what they were forced to do.
So you're saying the pedophile hunting parties, you've heard about that more than once?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Another thing I heard from a former Sutherland detective, she said, Fiona, is this true? She said a ritual abuse victim described to me that they took her out in a helicopter and threatened to throw her into the water.
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. That's what they do. They would take a few of them out and they would throw one in and tell everyone else in the helicopter, you'll be next if you tell. Now I think they did throw someone in with this little girl, but I said, oh yeah, and I just sometimes I've got knowledge in the back of my head, and if you ask me something, I go boom, 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 and I just... Not
only do they use helicopters, they'll use boats as well.
Yes, of course.
I know of another case where I was given information on where the pedophiles had the children out on a boat in the harbour, and police were, it was obviously not their own kind, police were coming out to the boat. They blew up the boat in Botany Bay. Now, given what I know there, I can't say a lot, but of course, but I mean, people could probably Google it and find it out. Boat explodes in Botany Bay or something, all survive, all on board, gone or whatever. Going back a few years, there's that much circumstantial evidence here. And
who was on the boat? Is this the one where there are a bunch of pedophiles and kids and they're having a pedophile party or something?
Yeah.
So they blew the whole thing up.
Yeah, I'd have to look up notes. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. There's a hell of a lot of information out there, which is verifiable. People can look it up. I mean, it's all there. You know, you go into looking up stuff like I said on 60 Minutes and Ralph Underwager and the Bubbles case. The links are there. The Beaumont children, it's all there.
And you were saying about the Northern Territory, so you believe too that
Look, you had Senator Collins in the federal parliament who was part of the pedophile rings in the Northern Territory. And he suicided before he went to court when he was finally charged, which is unusual because, I mean, there was just that much evidence on him. I mean, those who were linked in politics, I mean, you go back to, what's his name? Tony Bevan. Now, Tony Bevan used to run a pedophile ring down here in New South Wales.
Tony Bevan was Wollongong. He's one of mine.
Yes, that's right. He was a mayor. And he also used to run the plane with the Shark Patrol, and that was one of the planes they take the kids up in.
Yes, that's what okay, that's probably... Yes, that might be what they're talking about. The Sutherland detective might have been talking about to me.
They had all that. And now Tony Bevan also ran the pedophile rings where it linked to Costello's in King's Cross where the boys were taken.
Yes.
He also had a diary which he ran all these pedophiles. He kept their names in there.
Well, I was taken to pedophile parties at Wollongong City Council, the building.
There you go. He was the mayor of Wollongong.
And Frank
Arkell, who was his buddy.
Yeah.
Who was murdered later, him and his mate.
They were both murdered ritually, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. Now, in Tony Bevan's diaries, he had his pedophile mates all linked under different code names, like different nicknames. Now, one of them in there was Kazi Boy. Well, you can only have to surmise who that is. Now, you know, it's quite general knowledge that Bob used to cross-dress and whatnot, you know.
Bob Hawke.
And, Bob Carr.
Oh, Bob Carr, sorry. Yeah. Yes.
And, you know, he was well known for visiting, apparently, other places and establishments such as Brett's Boys. You know, there is so much information. I mean...
I've been told the same stuff, Deb, over and over again, the same names, same places.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Same thing.
Yep. And no one's doing anything.
No.
And you have these disbelievers.
Those boys, honestly, everyone's going on about the detention centre in Northern Territory, and it was horrendous what was done to Dylan, but that's nothing compared to what they actually do.
Exactly.
That's just the tip of the iceberg of what they do in that detention centre and what they've done in all the detention centres that I've heard about in Queensland, New South Wales and elsewhere.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So, you know, I don't know what the next step will be after me going, you know, and talking again, what might happen. You know, I'm prepared for any eventuality, so to speak. That I can physically prepare myself for. I mean, but you know, it comes to a point where, you know, how do you keep dodging the bullets, so to speak? You know, when people are disbelieving, and you have all this evidence, and you know, like I said, I don't make Medicare cards, I don't make driver's licenses. I've got all that copies of everything. I can prove all that. Now, if this was not real and this is not evidence, then what is damn well evidence? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is what people do. I get these trolls. I get these trolls on social media and they go, oh, we want to believe you about Hillsong, but what's the evidence? And some of these people, they might be Hillsong trolls or they might just be stupid Christians, you know, but they want this evidence. And I turn around and say, okay, you tell me what constitutes evidence.
Yeah.
So I want people now to tell me, what do you think constitutes evidence? And then when you go through and you say, well, yes, they did this, they did that. Now what would you do in their place? What else should they do?
Yeah.
You know, and do you know what? They've got no answer.
Well, yeah, that's right. So, okay, if I'm walking or driving down the street and I witnessed a murder, I witnessed someone being shot or whatever, right? Here's a prime example. I witnessed that. I go to the police and I say, this is what I saw. This is what happened. Blah, 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 blah. So then, and the police don't investigate, and then they come attacking you. So then, okay, you start shaking your head going, well, why are they attacking me? Because you saw something, you witnessed it. But they're not going to investigate. And then they start attacking you to say, no, you didn't see that, you're fabricating, it's all in your head. But the person is officially listed as missing. So what happened to them? Where did they go?
Mm.
Will they go off to fairyland?
Mm.
Never seen again? I mean, come on. You know, where do these people get off?
Mm.
So what do you do when you've only got yourself, or, you know, even if you were injured in that, so say there was a scuffle or something happened. You say you've got injuries which match with what you're saying, and you go to the police and you're saying, well, look, here's my injuries to back up what I'm saying. It's all there.
Mm.
What more do you have? What more can you do? There is nothing else you can do. You can only provide what you've got. And they will try and discredit what you've got. So where do you go from there?
Indeed.
People need to wake up. They need to wake up. And they need to wake up fast, because it's only a matter of time before they run out of fodder, what I call fodder, the kids, and they're looking for more. They're looking for fresh ones. Whose kid's next? Yours? Mine?
Yeah, exactly. People don't care until they're in pain
until it hits
themselves.
them. Yeah, exactly right.
That's the only time. And then those sorts of people want you and I to rescue them. They don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah,
they don't want to go public. You know, they're so lazy. It's like I had a victim of Bob Hawke, and she was the daughter, one of the daughters of Bob Hawke's architect, Kevin Boland, and or Borland or something. Anyway, she was sexually assaulted by Bob Hawke in her own bed at the age of 14, after the parents had had a few drinks and there was some party or something going on at the house. She was I paid for her hotel, and we were about to buy her plane ticket, and I bought my plane ticket, and we were about to confront the media in Sydney. And now, had she turned up, that would have changed history. And she had two sisters as witnesses who remembered it all. She told them at the time. She had family photographs with Bob Hawke in them. So that would have changed history. But she chose. She said, yeah. At the last, she says, "Oh, no, I don't want to, because, you know, I'm worried about my job and my house." I mean, how many of those have we lost, Deb?
Yeah.
Hey, I've lost every job I've ever had because of all this.
Well, they've been trying to get me out of where of my job. The police. They actually rang my employer and tried to get me out of my job. They tried to get me sacked. Like I said, the standard MO for them is no money, no fight. So if they can prevent you from earning a living and whatnot, then you don't have the means to fight back. You don't have means to survive.
Yep.
So, you know, this is one of the common tactics that I've found over the years of what they do to victims who speak out. They blacklist you. You can't get a job. They destroy your licenses or anything like that. Any of your credentials and your credibility is down the toilet in a heartbeat. I mean, people need to be aware of that too. I mean, you speak up, you be prepared for the consequences, because these people don't play for little games, you know.
No, they play to win and destroy you.
They play to win, and you better be prepared to be able to, have some skills up your sleeve, so to speak, in order to survive, because they will destroy any means you've got of survival.
Well,
They control everything.
Oh, they do. They've infiltrated every single organisation within Australia, and we know that. We know that. The schools, I mean, there are public schools, state schools they are in Australia. In England, they're a different thing. But, there are government schools in Australia where the children are prostituted. Moolumbar High School's one of them. Yeah. You know, through the high school, there was a child who not long ago was prostituted, and then the docs decided that, Children's Services decided, the family couldn't control that child, so we're taking this 13-year-old off you. And she was a model child till she got to Moolumbar High School. And anyway, then next thing, docs placed this little girl with a lesbian sexual predator who was having sex with her. And then this lesbian sexual predator jumped in a car one day with 3 other people and told this little girl, "Oh, you're not riding with us." And then she ran the car into a tree or something and killed everyone, including herself in it. And there were pictures of this lesbian predator with this little 13-year-old tongue kissing on Facebook. Now this is so really they prostituted that girl,
Yeah. nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing shocks me anymore. I've witnessed too much. I've seen too much of what's going on, and what surprises me more than anything, if we're going to go down that road, is the apathy, the ignorance of people.
Oh, makes me sick.
People disgust me
Yeah.
with this. Oh, well, where's the evidence stuff, and where's this and where's that, and you're this and you're that, without any evidence of their own, mind you. They don't have any evidence.
No, that's what I ask. Where's your evidence this isn't true? Prove to us this isn't going on.
Yeah, that's right. But they're quite happy to jump down your neck and, call you a liar or say that you're nuts and that this isn't real. But they've got nothing of their own to back it up. This is amazing. That amazes me more than anything else. It's not that this goes on. We know it goes on. I mean, they put out the movie years ago and whatnot, all the horror movies and whatnot. They're not actually movies. They're actually telling you it's the only way they can put it out without being attacked, that this is going on. See, now, the people who are in the entertainment industry who are on the right side, they are trying to let the people know by putting these out but as entertainment. But they're not entertainment.
Well, look at Stanley Kubrick. He died during the editing of Eyes Wide Shut, and they cut out a lot of the stuff in that movie.
Yeah, exactly right. So it is there if people are willing to, be more open-minded and take a look and take a good close look.
But people really don't do. People just want their beer and wine. They want their football. They want their footy. They want to watch, their TV, shows and their Big Brother shows and all the garbage under the sun, and be absolutely brainwashed by whatever's in the media, and that they don't believe anything unless it's on 60 Minutes, which is run by these pedophile supporters now. I call them media enablers. They are pedophile ring media enablers. So they're enabling these pedophiles.
Yes,
right?
I totally agree with you.
And
totally agree with you.
And people are a little bit horrified when it came out about the Northern Territory case with Dylan. But that's nothing, and we've been telling them that they didn't even believe that happened when we used to say it.
That's right.
They don't believe it unless it's in the newspapers, mainstream media.
That's right. I call it lamestream.
Yeah, lamestream.
Lamestream media.
And it makes it difficult for us, doesn't it?
It does. It makes it very difficult. It's
worse than... Look, particularly in this church, these Hillsong-type churches that I grew up with, I am more sickened by these pew-warming, apathetic whingers, lazy people sitting around waiting for the rapture to occur, right? Doing nothing, warming the Sunday pews until the rapture occurs. I'm more disgusted. I'm more disgusted by Australian churchianity goers than I am by the pedophiles, because I tell you now, the buck stops with the Christian churches, and when there is a judgment, because there will be, we're gearing up for a Third World War. Mankind only goes so long before there's some catastrophic event or a world war.
Mankind is just so corrupt.
I tell you what, judgment's going to begin with these churches and Hillsong and the people in there. If you can't watch the news and see, reports on Brian Houston, where he lied, the Royal Commission determined he lied and covered things up. If that's not even an indicator to you, there is something seriously wrong, because you're the type of person who's going to be taken by surprise when some calamity hits this planet. When society just is destroyed to the point where you can't survive, and you can't. It's like in France, you can't just walk down the streets of France or Germany anymore, because I know from first-hand witnesses that it is absolutely full of refugees, and they'll stand there right in front of your face, almost nose to nose, if you got a drink, and just stare at you until you give them your drink. People have lost their original way of life over there, from what I've heard. And they're starting to feel the pinch of just how far this society's gone, to the dogs. So, and what's happening. And, Australia, we've had it too good for too long.
Yeah, Australia's been very sheltered, this is the way I put it. the Australians have been so far away from all that sort of, calamity, as you call it, for a long, long time. Now, it wasn't until the last, the Second World War and Vietnam, maybe even, that people were exposed to any sort of that sort of
grief and loss.
Yeah, and
horror.
So people don't get it anymore because it's not affecting it. It's not hitting home yet.
No.
We had all the protests and all that in the 60s and the 70s with against the Vietnam War and whatnot. So, but people don't do that anymore. They're so conditioned now to accepting. I'll put it down for a better word. Accepting that this sort of violence and
they're desensitised to it.
War games seems to be okay to do.
But they're desensitised to it. They allow their children to watch these movies. They allow them to play PlayStation, violent games where they rape women and steal cars and shoot people and shoot zombies and slaughter people and engage in what are essentially Luciferian activities. This is all right. And then they turn around and wonder, what happened to society?
Because they think it's not real. So therefore, when someone comes out with anything that is along those lines or very similar or comes up with anything like that, it triggers these subconscious memories for the people who have watched these movies, and therefore they think, well, that was in the movies, or I saw something like that was in the movies, and so therefore that can't be real.
Yeah. And I think that's the main reason Hollywood spews out these movies.
Exactly. That was why I raised the issue. People have got no idea of how devious these people are.
Mm.
They haven't dealt with it. They haven't had to look at it. And, unfortunately, that's a sad fact. If they had to deal with it on a daily basis, like I've had to do, I'm sure they'd change their damn well tune when they're sitting there listening to victims, telling them what they have had to go through, what they've done, what has been done to them. They would not sleep at night, because I'm telling you now, there's many nights I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. And there's many nights now when I remember things that, I don't sleep. For that very reason. And that's why people disgust me. Because it's different if it was their child. And they couldn't sleep.
Well,
it'd be a whole bloody ball game then, wouldn't it?
It would indeed, Deb. And on that note, I think we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. So I just, thank you so much for coming back on for another session of this and reliving all this with us. I hope somehow we can shed some light on this and some of these pedophiles can go scurrying under the bushes and leave you alone.
Well, I don't think they're going to leave me alone, but what I do hope is that we can reach the people and they can help and support others. That is what I'm here for. I'm only here because of the lack of knowledge or understanding of the average man and woman out there who is blinded by this and the media, believing that this doesn't happen, this can't be real, this is, from some Hollywood movie. Let me tell you, no, it's not.
No.
It's not out of some Hollywood movie.
Wish it was.
I wish it was too. The people that I've dealt with and supported, if only it was Hollywood. If only.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deb.
This can't go on. It's got to stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for having me, and hopefully we can make a difference by making people aware. And, we can put up the evidence, but to protect people, especially my children and whatever, names will be blanked out, but, I've got evidence that I can show. If they need more convincing other than that, well, then, I don't know what else you can do. But I can prove 110% that we have the RTA, Medicare, first deaths of marriages, the New South Wales Police, and the parliaments, and the courts, all complicit in this, in the cover-up.
And then there's the multiple witness testimonies naming the same people over and over, same locations, same activities, same crimes.
Exactly. But anyway,
Okay.
we've done that. We've done that, and we've joined a few dots and put a few things out there. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more, but one person I am quite concerned about right now, as I said, is someone that I know who is an innocent man, who is currently being set up before the courts, who has never seen his daughter since the day she was abducted by police in Western Australia, and he will be quite happy, I think, to talk with you. I'll give you his number, and you can have a talk with him and see if he will talk. But probably after the court matter is dealt with, because he may be subjected to some judici, or things might turn around another way if he does.
No, maybe we should send some support people out there to the case.
Yeah, maybe. Well, anyway, I'll put you in touch.
Okay.
Indeed,
that we'll do that. That sounds great. Okay, Deb. Thanks.
There's murder involved here, and he has lost his daughter. He's never seen her since. So I'm concerned she may also be dead. That they have killed her because she spoke out too.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, darling. Catch you later.
Thank you.
Good luck, and good luck with your work, and I'll support you where I can, because this is something that needs to be actually ripped wide open.
Yeah.
For all the children's sake.
We're trying. We're putting
all
everything on the
children,
line because the police have failed us and everyone's failed me.
The system, not just the police, the whole system
I know,
has
the
failed.
whole system.
So therefore, we have to take action ourselves.
Yeah.
But not just our own children, but for everyone else's child
Well, it's...
that has or has not been abused. Every child needs protection and deserves to be protected. And if this is going on, they're at risk. Any child is at risk, which is why I'm speaking up now.
Well, Australia's not a democracy, folks. It's a pedocracy.
Yes, it is a pedocracy. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Catch you later.
Thanks,
And we'll get all our friends around us and we'll sing a song together.
1, 2, 3, 4, my body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. And again, my body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine.
When I am touched, then I know how I feel. My feelings are mine and my feelings are real. Sometimes it's hard to say no and be strong. When the no feeling comes, then I know something's wrong. My body's mine from my head to my toe. Please leave me alone when you hear me say no. My body's mine to be used as I choose. Not to be threatened or forced or abused. This is my body, it's part of my time. I've got to take care of this body of mine.
My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine.
And we'll get all our friends around us and we'll sing a song together.
1, 2, 3, 4, my body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. And again, my body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine.
When I am touched, then I know how I feel. My feelings are mine and my feelings are real. Sometimes it's hard to say no and be strong. When the no feeling comes, then I know something's wrong. My body's mine from my head to my toe.
Please leave me alone
when you hear me say no. My body's mine to be used as I choose. Not to be threatened or forced or abused. This is my body, it's part of my time. I've got to take care of this body of mine.
My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine. My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine.
And we'll get all our friends around us and we'll sing a song together.
1, 2, 3, 4, my body's nobody's body but mine.